Hey, Will King here. And today on the Build Show, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different than my normal content here on Build Show. I want to talk to you about rental houses and investment property and how you, as a builder, can take advantage of those to set yourself up for a good retirement. All right, so we talk about rental houses. I guess I need to tell my story first about how I got into them and the reason that it really struck me as a good idea to continue pursuing. So, back in 2007, we bought our first house in the Birmingham area, and we all know what happened in 2008. So, fast forward a few years, we tried to sell this house and we were unable to get anywhere near what we had in it back out of it. So, by default, we ended up with our first rental property. And I remember putting up a sign in the yard for rent before we went out of town. And before we could even get to our destination driving, I had to call somebody and tell them to please go take that sign down because my phone was ringing off the hook. And I believe our mortgage payment on that house was somewhere around 500 bucks and the rent was 1,000. So we doubled the mortgage payment and we had a line of people wanting to get into it. It really struck me then as like, hey, this is a pretty good idea if I can double my mortgage payment and then let somebody else pay for my house. Like, I'm not a mathematician, but those numbers seem to be pretty good. So fast forward, we ended up renting that house out, obviously. And in the meantime, we had bought some real estate and I guess flipped it and renovated and sold some real estate. And those worked for us too. But I really started thinking more and more about how we were going to build a very good retirement for our family. So we fast forward a few years. I started the build company and I was still a fireman at the time, but we ended up, ultimately deciding to leave the fire service behind and go full time in the building. And at that point, I really had to consider my retirement because I left my state retirement behind and I had to really think about how, I guess, my exit strategy from the building world. So I'll say if you're a builder, you really need to think about that. And a lot of builders do consider their retirement and what that's gonna look like for them one day. But there's a lot of builders that I get questions from that are still trying to figure out that path. And so, obviously, I think diversifying your retirement's important. And I'm not a CPA, I'm not an investment advisor, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I definitely play the game of my 401ks and that kind of thing. But real estate is a clear path to me because I can see it, touch it, feel it, and I know the real estate game because that's what we do as a profession. So when I struck out trying to learn more and more about rental houses and how to really set them up, I started listening to a podcast called Bigger Pockets. And it's a very well-known podcast, and if you're not a listener and you're interested in real estate, I can't recommend something more to you. I started listening to Bigger Pockets, and they were talking about the Burr method, which I thought was a little funny the way they were describing, or I guess the word for it. But essentially what you're doing is you're paying cash for a property, you're rehabbing it, and then you're renting it out, and then you refinance it. And when you refi it, you're getting all of your cash back out of that property. So essentially, you end up with zero down payment on a property that somebody else is paying for. And once I figured out how that worked, we were able to do that on a few properties. And in some of them, honestly, we weren't able to get all of our money back, but we were able to get the majority of it back. And so we were able to I guess, leverage that and get a few more properties, as we went. And next thing we know, we had a pretty good portfolio of rental houses and ultimately somebody else paying for them. All right, so let's talk about why a builder is the perfect person to get into real estate investments. As a builder, you already have great relationships with all the people that you need. So you have, a real estate agent that you have attorneys that handle real estate closings that you have insurance people that you have relationships with, and all the subcontractors. And I even added a private investigator to that mix too to help find some of these real estate deals. But you have the tools in the toolbox you already need to be successful at real estate. And you also have a relationship with a banker, or most builders do, depending on how your structure is, but you have that connection too. And I feel like we also, as a builder, we have a pulse on the real estate market. We know the neighborhoods that are up and coming, the ones that are on decline. We typically have the insight of when stuff's coming, whether it's a development down the street from a neighborhood that's going to be positive for that subdivision. But so you already have all this knowledge. It only makes sense that you start investing in real estate and using all those tools in your toolbox. So one thing that I use my rental houses for as well is a opportunity for new subcontractors to work for us, or even new employees that I hire that are carpenters. It's a great place that you can plug those subs in or plug those employees in to give them a shot at earning your trust and really just to see what kind of quality they can produce. So that has definitely been a really good thing for us to be able to try these people out before we actually start using them on our custom houses. No matter where you're buying real estate today, and the upswings, the downswings, over the next 10 to 20 years after holding that property, it's going to appreciate in value. And so it's a great place to put your money. In my opinion, it's a very safe place to put your money. And when I'm looking at real estate, people ask me, well, how do you know if that'd be a good rental house or not? And I think that you have to identify the tenants that you're wanting to rent to, the area that you're wanting to be in. So like in our market here, we have a college town. So I find it to be very easy to rent to college students. And so to set up houses to be friendly for college students, and then to put and buy the ones in areas, or even build the ones in the areas that college kids are going to want to live. And in our market, it's pretty easy. It's in downtown Florence. The way I used to look at them from a value standpoint, or from a cost standpoint. So the very basic way to look at it is, if a house costs, let's say $100,000, which good luck today to find a house for that when it's finished. But if you have a $100,000 total investment, trying to rent that house for as close to $1,000 a month as you can. Now, that used to be easier with cost and inflation and some of the things we've seen in the last few years. Our rental rates are slowly catching up with that. But even if you're in that $800 a month range, that's still not bad. And you're going to be positive over your payment every month, which is the big thing. You're going to cover your costs, and you have to figure that out, what your payment and insurance, taxes, and overhead is, and make sure that you are covering that and are positive. Because I look at them as, it's not a way to make money right now. It's a way that I'm building wealth for the future. So one comment I get all the time from people is they don't want to get into the rental houses because they don't want to have to deal with the tenants. And I understand that can be very frustrating. And I've certainly been there. And there's been situations where I've been ready to just scream and run away from it. But if you identify good areas and you can target a good tenant, you're going to be successful at it. So we don't want to have rental property that we couldn't live in ourselves, or we wouldn't want our daughter to live in. So our daughters to live in. So by that, we try to always make our rental properties nice, clean, comfortable, safe place to live. And as long as you have good properties like that, you can find good tenants, and there's certain tools that you can use to screen tenants and to attract better tenants. But as long as you do your job on the front end to find those individuals, it's going to make your life so much easier in terms of managing the tenants that are living in your house. And also too, if another reason a builder's good at real estate, or can be really good at having a rental portfolio, is because you have a staff of some type. Most of us have at least one person in our office that's handling our invoicing and financing. You probably have a carpenter or a handyman. You probably have, some part-time help that's cleaning job sites or whatever it might be. And so being able to use your staff to help run that business and help set them up and help manage the invoicing and the insurance and those kind of things, you're just taking advantage of your current situation as a builder and being able to use that to grow another business. And I think that's the key part of why builders really are, or really can be successful, having rental portfolios. So one more thing I want to talk about is how we've been able to find deals in real estate. I think that's the thing that people are always looking for. They're always trying to find the best deal, and you should if you're trying to build a rental portfolio. So obviously, we all know how to get on Zillow or get a realtor to send us real estate listings, and certainly do that. And I use both of those tools often, but also, you've got to be able to put your boots on the ground and dig up some deals, and that's what we've been able to do in the last few years. And by that, I mean, if we identify, let's say, a vacant house that's sitting and maybe the landscape's grown up and there's no activity, I'll get on things like the revenue commissioner's website for our county. I'll look up who owns it. I'll try that first to see if I happen to know them or if I can find them on social media. And if there's no success there, I have a private investigator that I found that I can send him that information, and then they have the ability to dig up even more contact information for them, or maybe it's their family, to get you in contact with them. So we've had some success there too. Now, obviously, there's things like I think auction.com might be one of them to find some foreclosure auctions. I don't do a lot of that, to be honest, but that is a tool to find more deals in your area. One more thing that we've done to find houses that we can buy is simply sending out letters. So a couple years ago, I did this, and I sent out personalized letters to basically an entire neighborhood, or at least half of it, and asked them if they'd be willing to sell their house. And I know it sounds a little cheesy, but to be honest with you, we bought 2 houses off of that letter campaign, I guess, and those have turned into really good properties for us. So that's definitely not a trick that you should not try, because I think that you never know who's going to respond to it. So one last thing I want to talk about is the fact that we own our office in our real estate portfolio or our rental portfolio. So I have an entity set up for that, and we own our office real estate in that LLC, and then our building company is renting it from us. All right, so I know today's video is a little bit different than what we typically do here on Build Show, but I hope you were able to get a little bit of information from it. If you're not already following us on Instagram, please go do so. It's at Will King Builds. You can also follow along at High Cotton Homes as well. And we're posting videos once a week here at Build Show Network. And just remember, iron sharpens iron, so keep grinding, keep watching these videos, and we'll see you right here on the Build Show.